Hi guys, my name's Michaela Cantley, and today I'll be talking about tourism and disaster. So let's get started. First, disaster. There are two types of disasters that I'll be talking about today. One of them being natural hazard, which is any event or force of nature that has catastrophic consequences. Examples of that are forest fires, earthquakes, flooding, tsunamis, volcanoes, and tornadoes. The other type of disaster is a man-made disaster, which is a disastrous event caused directly and principally by one or more identifiable, deliberate, or negligent human actions. Example of that is terrorism, biochemical warfare, nuclear explosions, or even global warming. Moving on to tourism. Tourism is the business or industry of providing information, accommodations, transportation, and other services to tourists. When most people think of tourism, you think of the pleasure of traveling to new destinations that you might not have visited before. Those exotic destinations usually come with a price, being located in areas where natural disasters are at high risk. This creates a direct correlation between tourism and disaster, which often gets ignored. Different areas call for different chances of disasters happening. Here are three examples of natural disasters that occurred around the world which created a negative impact on tourism. The Swiss avalanche disaster in 1965, Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, and the Indian Ocean tsunami which happened on the coast of Thailand in 2004. Man-made disasters have also caused a negative impact on tourism, especially with terrorism on the rise. A primary example is 9/11 in New York City. 9/11 did not only affect the city itself, but air travel and security. Many people felt unsafe to travel, which immensely decreased income for the airline industry. There are five primary effects of disasters on tourism. Obviously, if a disaster strikes an area, there will be a great loss of tourists visiting the location and damage in infrastructure, which usually takes months to years to bring back to normal. A decrease in tourism leads to a decline in income from businesses and resorts, which leads to an increase in unemployment. Many people lose their jobs, which creates a huge reduction in tax revenue. This then affects government spending, which affects the money needed to create preparation efforts for areas at high risk of disasters. To lessen the impact of those effects, it is key to prepare high-risk areas. There are four stages of disasters: assessment, where you assess the problem; warning, impact, and recovery. Since there are many types of disasters, it is important to assess each area individually and create different precautions for each. For example, a tsunami and forest fire come without warning, whereas a hurricane might give you a couple days to prepare. Recovering from disasters is done much easier if the local government puts the effort in creating emergency plans. Through the recovery process, there are many volunteer organizations that come in to disaster-stricken areas to help with the recovery process. It is also important for the local government to alert the media that a disaster has struck so the word gets out and more help is sent. Once the recovery efforts are almost back to regular, it is important to regain the tourists' confidence and interest in the area and make sure they know that their safety and security is always accounted for. Even though tourism and disaster are two subjects that have not been linked together much, there are two subjects that are highly correlated and important to study. Throughout the years, disasters as 9/11 and Hurricane Katrina brought much attention to the subject, which helped create preparation plans for areas that are at high risk. After 9/11, for example, airport security was greatly improved and more focused on to make sure things like that do not happen again. So in conclusion, many do not think of tourism and disaster when booking a flight for a new destination. Therefore, it is really important for local governments to assess the risk of disasters possible in the area. There are two subjects that get very commonly ignored, but it is important to pre-plan so the impact of the disaster is not as catastrophic. In order for recovery to be a success, it needs to be implemented immediately, and preparation and planning always needs to be key.